In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live. And we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. Are you brand new to Jimmy Rants? It's all good. Welcome to the fray. JimmyRants.com is the website. And you'll see once you go there that we start off over on Instagram. So go follow me on Instagram at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content, just like all of these awesome people are coming in right now to do. If you missed the live, you can watch it for up to 24 hours on replay on Instagram. So go follow me on Instagram. But if you don't do Instagram, or if you happen to miss the replay, never fear. We have all the past episodes of Jimmy Rants up on YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants and you will find the show. We also throw some bonus episodes up on YouTube. So even my regular rantsers, as I like to call you, go and type in Jimmy Rants bonus on YouTube. You'll find those bonus episodes of extra content that you don't get here. Finally, we have a Jimmy Rants podcast, which you can listen to the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form. That is on both Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. So go subscribe, go listen, you guys. And again, all of these links are at JimmyRants.com. Today's Jimmy Rants is all a philosophical one as it relates to dietary fat. So we live in a day and age where people are embracing a low-carb, high-fat, ketogenic diet in greater numbers than we've seen in a very long time. Keto is all the rage. Keto is the big diet that everyone is talking about. And one of the tenets of a ketogenic diet is that it's defined as a diet low in carbohydrate, moderate in protein, and high in dietary fat. Now, most people, they hear the low carb part and they go, all right, I feel you. I got that. I can handle that. It'll suck, but I can handle that. Moderate the protein. Okay, well, I'm not really a big fan of overdoing it with protein anyway. No big deal. But then you get to the dietary fat and people about lose their minds. So what I want to talk about here today is what's the real reason why you still fear dietary fat? And so I want to go through some of those reasons. The biggest reason people fear consuming dietary fat is heart health. So they think that if they eat a lot of fat, especially saturated fat, that they eat the fat and it goes right to their coronary arteries, clogs it all up, and it gives them a heart attack. We've all believed that. We've all come to keto at one point and had those trepidations about what dietary fat was doing to our cardiovascular system, about the risk of having a heart attack, about getting heart disease. We have been sold a bill of goods, you guys. So if you have not read my book, Cholesterol Clarity, please get a copy of that book, cholesterolclarity.com, if you want to go right to the Amazon page for the book. We've been sold a big bill of goods because saturated fat is not the key to heart disease. It's not a reason for heart disease. The biggest reason we have heart disease is the carbohydrates that we're consuming, and especially the refined carbohydrates and the vegetable oils that we're consuming. Those are the things contributing to heart disease, not dietary fat. And yet you talk to people about eating a higher fat diet like keto, and they about lose their minds because they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have a heart attack. And so that's not a good reason. That's not a good reason for fearing fat, is cardiovascular issues. There is no randomized control clinical trial that shows consuming real food-based fats in the context of a carbohydrate-restricted diet causes any heart disease. It just doesn't. All right, so that one's out. What's another reason, and if you're just joining us, we're talking about some of the real reasons why people fear fat, and maybe some of the reasons they give aren't really valid. So I'm trying to dig deeper. What is the real reason? The second reason a lot of people fear fat is the calories. So we've been told our entire lives, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get healthy, you have to cut the amount of calories that you consume. And because 1 gram of dietary fat has 9 calories and protein and carbohydrate, 1 gram only has 4 calories, the obvious first choice in cutting your calories is in the fat, because you can cut just a little bit of fat and significantly drop down the calories. But here's the thing. It's not the calories that is causing issues in your health. It's not the calories in and of themselves that are leading to weight gain. It's not. It's the hormonal connection that the food you're eating is having on your body. And when you consume foods that raise insulin levels and cause all kind of havoc within the body, that is what puts body weight on your body. That, along with some other lifestyle things. So people that arbitrarily cut their fat in their diet, what are they indirectly doing? They're eating more of the very things that are actually making their bodies get fatter. And so cut all the fat you want out of the diet, but you're not going to prevent yourself, unless you're starving yourself well below your amount of calories that you would consume in a day. Unless you're purposely starving yourself, you will not necessarily lose weight when you cut fat significantly out of the body. Now, let me be very clear. When I'm talking about dietary fat, I'm talking about real food-based, whole food-based fats. Butter, coconut oil, lard, ghee, tallow. I could go on and on and on. All of these are real whole food-based fats. What I'm not talking about is vegetable oils like canola oil, corn oil, all the so-called healthy oils, which we've talked about on previous episodes of Jimmy Rants. Those are in all the packaged foods, those vegetable oils. Sugar is in all the packaged foods. Grains are in all the packaged foods. Do you see anything in there with real food-based fats, real food-based ingredients that would be obesogenic? So if people are fearing fat because of the caloric intake of 9 calories per gram, if they're fearing that, it's really a non-starter. I just finished a 28-day experiment where I ate a keto carnivore diet. And in the midst of that keto carnivore, what did I do? I didn't worry about calories. I ate a lot of fat, probably around 75% fat on average. And you want to know how many calories I consumed in the midst of that experiment? I haven't run the numbers fully, but it was somewhere around 26 to 2,700 calories a day. Now, I'm a big boy, so that's probably a good amount, but it's higher than what people would think you would need to do for weight loss. Well, guess what? I lost 23 pounds in 28 days. So the whole notion that you cut back on calories as a means for losing weight, and that's a reason why you fear consuming too much dietary fat, it's a non-starter. It really is. So those are the two big ones. And what I want to know from you guys is, what's the real reason? What is the real reason that people still, to this day, despite all the evidence, despite all the people showing that they're doing very well eating higher fat, despite all the negative stigma that comes from consuming fat being a bad thing? I was just at the phlebotomist and got blood drawn for all the tests that I had run with this experiment, this keto carnivore experiment. And, oh, what you been doing this time? Because I tell them I always do these experiments. And, oh, I'm doing this kind of ketogenic, and they know what that means because I've talked to them before. But a ketogenic diet, but with mostly meat and animal foods. Oh, that's so unhealthy, the phlebotomist said. And I was like, okay, why is it unhealthy? Oh, well, fruits and vegetables are so much far more superior in nutrition. And so for the next 3 minutes, she got an education from Jimmy Moore where I explained actually meat has far better nutrition than all the vegetables and fruits in the world. And so it opened her eyes a little bit. She wasn't buying it, but she's eating Boca burgers and all that kind of stuff. So anywho, so what I want to know from you guys is, what's the real reason? I've given you 2 reasons why people do, and they're the 2 big ones, cardiovascular risks and eating too many calories. But what are some other reasons why people still fear fat? All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Hello, Susan. I'm glad you're new here, and I'm glad you are here. All righty, let's see what we have. I don't fear dietary fat, says Tall Redhead. It's just that if I eat too much, I stall out. So I disagree with that statement, because if you're listening to your satiety signals, and listen to me carefully on this one, because people think, oh, low carb, high fat, you gorge yourself on fat. And nobody has ever encouraged anybody to gorge themselves on fat. I know people like to use the Paula Deen meme and try to make fun of people that eat a higher fat diet. And, oh, all this fat that you're just eating sticks of butter. Nobody in their right mind has ever promoted sticks of butter. Nobody's telling people to gorge themselves on fat. So it's a low carb diet to your tolerance level, a moderate protein to your personal threshold, and then fats to satiety. So fat to satiety, I realize, is subjective. It's not an exact amount, but if you listen to your body, and the more you do keto, the easier it becomes to listen, then this whole notion of, well, if I eat too much fat, I'm going to stall out, is just, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And so I hate this notion that people think, oh, well, when weight stops moving, the first place that I have to cut is in my dietary fat. I just explained to you, I ate 2,700 calories a day during this keto carnivore, and I still lost gobs of weight. So had I cut fat in the diet, would I have, quote, lost more? Maybe. Would I have caused some issues with this experiment doing as well as it did with satiety and controlling cravings and not wanting the desire to eat other things? I don't know. I think the fat that I did consume was exactly what I needed to do in order to get the results that I was looking for. So I don't buy this notion that you have to cut fat when you stall in your weight. There are so many things that are involved in that I don't buy it. Somebody's got to show me the evidence that that is a true statement. Welcome in, welcome in. They fear fat because their doctor and everybody they know tells them they need to fear fat, so it's hard to go against most people. Mike, you're onto something there. There is this reinforcement by our culture. Doctors, medical doctors, dietitians, and just in general seeing it out there in the culture. You can't even watch like a TV show without seeing some reference to, oh, well, that's too much fat, and aren't you worried about? And so you're always going to get those negative reinforcements of that notion that fat is somehow a bad thing. So that is a big thing. People are very trusting of these medical people and nutritional health people and experts that talk about fat in a negative way all the time. So that does have an influence. You're right, Mike. Fat is the fuel. I love my fat, says Mitzi. Well, Mitzi, yes, you do. But what I'm trying to get at here with this Jimmy Rants is how in the world, with all the knowledge we have and people like you and I who do see fat as fuel, who do see fat as a positive thing in our health, how do people still, with all the knowledge that we have, still believe that somehow dietary fat is harming them in any way. Clegadier said, just got my blood work back yesterday, 5 years eating keto, my triglycerides 63 and my VLDL 14, my A1C was 4.6. And you probably got all those amazing numbers, Clegadier, eating a high-fat diet. I wish there was a way we could kind of push people to a website that says, all right, when I ate low-fat, here are my numbers. When I switched over to eating high-fat, here are the numbers that did for me. And you'll see triglycerides drop. You'll see HDL go up. You'll see A1C, like you did, Clegadier, go way down. You'll see fasting insulin levels go way down. All of these good health markers, they get better. And so it begs the question, if all of these health markers get better when someone eats a diet that's about 75% fat, how does the medical profession, how do the so-called health experts, how do nutritional health experts ignore that evidence? I don't see how you can. You can't ignore when people are seeing good results. Thank you, Sam. Congrats on your N=1 and the success from it. Yes, and I'm keeping it going. So today is day one of not having to track and not having to be so obsessive about taking pictures and posting and all that. So it's going to be interesting moving forward. And I'm also going to a conference this weekend in Long Beach, California, the Metabolic Health Summit, speaking there on Sunday. So when I get back from that, I am going to probably institute some HIIT training again, get back into the infrared sauna on a regular basis, some ice baths and other things. And I'm going to keep on eating a whole lot of dietary fat because I don't fear it. I think people still fear fat because we were taught for many years by doctors and other authority types to watch fat consumption. Nicholas, yep, that's what was mentioned earlier, that's for sure. Thank you for educating the phlebotomist, Mark. They know when they start talking to me, they're going to get an earful, especially if they ask questions like they did. Christy says, 25 plus years of it being drilled into our heads that fat is bad. I've finally gotten past it, been doing keto for over a year. Christy, you're onto something there too. It has become so cultural for those of us of a certain age. I grew up a kid of the 80s. When the 1980s came around, I was still in single digits in my age, and I absolutely had my mom buy into the low-fat lie, hook, line, and sinker. So I grew up with rice cakes and fat-free this and fat-free that, and it became such a part of the culture that if you're over a certain age, say over 40 years old, that's all you've seen and heard about your entire life. And so suddenly now you're hearing that there's health properties to eating fat. It just blows your mind. People can't wrap their heads around it. And that does play a big role as to why people still fear dietary fat. Sessa says years of brainwashing. It really was. And what happened in the midst of that? We all got sick and fat. Thanks, USDA. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, guys. Salamore 56, fat equates to fat on our body. That is what people think, and that goes to the calories that we talked about earlier, that if you eat fat, you get fat because you eat too many calories, and that's just bogus as well. Kitty Caddick says, bad studies, headlines, and the lack of knowledge equals fat fear, meat fear, saturated fat fear. People are heavily influenced by what they see and hear in the media. And not always is that based on any good science at all. But they put it out there, and because it's out there, oh, well, they wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. Oh, yeah? You want to bet? It's so ingrained in people's psyche, people don't like to deviate from the norm. Clegadier, that's another one that people are like, well, we've gotten along fine without having to eat a lot of fat, and I don't understand why we have to eat fat suddenly, not realizing that most people have gotten fatter. Most people have gotten more heart disease. Most people have even led to having type 2 diabetes and cancer and Alzheimer's and all these things that if you look at it, it's a direct result of their fear of fat. My wife, Christine, had her gallbladder taken out. How many people had to have their gallbladder taken out? And it's become a routine surgery now. We'll just yank that out, says doctors, not realizing that the reason gallbladders are having to be yanked out is people have obediently cut their fat. And so when you eat a low-fat diet and you're not consuming those fats to stoke bile production, your gallbladder will peter out, get sludgy, and it won't work anymore the way it's supposed to. And that's why they have it taken out. Not realizing that if they just ate more fats in their diet, that would never have happened. A lifetime of trusting people we thought knew best. Olga, that's true. Most of us have had doctors, dietitians, people that we trusted with our health, and they have let us down. But we know better now. Kimberly says, meats, butter, and other fats are welcome in our household. Never been a more happy mommy to teach my kids how to eat correctly. And I think that's one of the ways that we overcome all of these reasons that people still fear dietary fat is we talk about the positive nature. Oh yeah, I started eating a high-fat diet with a low-carb context, keto, and I saw my triglycerides drop, and oh man, I feel so energetic all the time. Oh man, it tastes so good. And so you start putting it in a positive light, and slowly but surely that starts to work on people and their psyche and overcoming all of this propaganda that's been in their heads for decades. Can't wait to hear about your lab results. Personally, I dropped my fasting insulin 2.5 points on 1 month of carnivore. So Mark, yeah, I started somewhere around 10.6 in my insulin before this. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see how much it dropped. But I know it has to have dropped. There's no way it couldn't. My diet is 65 to 70% fat. Well, great. You're eating a high-fat diet. That would be too low fat for me. I have to be somewhere in the 75 to 80% fat in order to get results for me. So this is highly individualized and tall redhead. So if that works for you, then keep doing it and keep tracking your markers. Kudos to you. Alberto, mostly mentally, some people think if the animal is still alive, or they think the animal's still alive on the dinner plate. That's the real reason why they fear dietary fat. That's a weird one. Kings71611 says, I'm nursing. My doctor said to make sure I'm eating enough fat because that is what makes up most of the milk. She's pro keto. That is a very smart doctor because, yeah, breast milk is probably around 65, 70% saturated fat. Do you guys think God is stupid? He put that in breast milk for a reason. And so I'll never understand it when people say, well, I need to cut back on saturated fat. What do you think they're feeding babies when you breastfeed a baby? It's 75% fat, mostly saturated fat. So it's crazy. It's weird because I used to crave sweet foods and now I crave fat, says Nita. Your body's telling you you need it. That's for sure. All right. So loving every minute of ketosis. You have a general question and I'll do my little PSA that I do on these Jimmy Rants. When I do a Jimmy Rants episode, we stick to what's at the pinned post down there. What's the real reason why you still fear dietary fat? So yours is a general question. I'm more than happy to answer, but private message me or you can email me, jimmy@llvlc.com. Negative reinforcements, especially on the cooking shows and magazines, should we be calling them out? Terry, yes, and not just cooking shows. Christine and I like to watch The Big Bang Theory. We love that show. And you look at some of the past episodes, and there's one scene where the character Bernadette is getting a yogurt, and she was hoping to get the fat-free yogurt, and she looks at the label and says, oh no, this is the wrong yogurt. This is the fatty one, the fatty, fat one, as if it was a bad thing. And so those kinds of things get in the culture and people, oh yeah. It just kind of reinforces subtly what we already believe. The guidelines for us has been scaring us for years, says Amcase. Most doctors believe in it. I had to educate my endocrinologist. Not sure she's on board, but I don't care. It's working for me and I do me. The dietary guidelines are a huge part of it. And again, people are like, well, they wouldn't put it out there if it wasn't true. They wouldn't keep promoting it if it was somehow causing harm to the people that are following it. Oh yeah, you want to bet? It's exactly what they've done. I think if we could have a community inside of the Heads Up Health website, we might be able to gain some of this information that you're talking about, as far as I did this and it helped. I did that and it didn't help. Yeah. So Mike is onto something there. So headsuphealth.com is the website he's referring to, and it lets you put in health markers and then little notes as to how you got those health markers. I like that idea, Mike. Doesn't help when there are programs like Weight Watchers just promoting bad information and garbage. Live and Listen Healthy, that is another one. You see all of these other companies that are promoting, oh, well, we've got these low-fat meal, lean meats and healthy proteins and healthy grains and beans and blah, blah, blah. And so they see all that. Although a lot of those companies are now realizing the keto handwriting on the wall, and they're coming up with their own keto versions of their diet. So that is quite interesting. Keto Brett says, my friends are afraid of fat and sodium. Everyone thinks I'm going to die, except I finally have my blood pressure under control after being on blood thinners my entire adult life. Yeah, fat and salt are the two things people fear, incredibly so, and it's irrational. There's no reason why you should be fearing fat or real salt. Coconut oil is saturated fat and fine for us, says Ketoholic. Wanted to explain to my aunt why. It's difficult, especially the older generation. Some of them are getting it little bit by little bit, but even still, it's just like all this notion of propaganda they've heard their whole lives. It just, it's hard for them to overcome it. Grassroots education is the answer. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Clegadier. I agree. It's one reason I do these Jimmy rants so often, is I want people to hear the information that they're probably not getting much place else. My daughter was taught in nursing school, the old school, fat is bad and we have to have carbs. I cannot convince her otherwise, says SMC Curry. Yeah. Especially medical professionals and dietitians who've had that deeply pushed into their psyche. And what I would ask those people, I think the younger generation is a little more skeptical of some of that stuff they're being taught because of what they've read on the internet. I think the older generation of people that have gone through nursing school, gone through medical school, gone through dietetic school, that start to look online at all the information that's out there, and they make a change, that's who's going to impact this culture and get people to stop fearing fat. Again, any general questions? Ketoholic has a great general question, but it's not within what we're talking about here today. So I don't answer general questions. What's funny is I'll occasionally do a general question Jimmy Rants episode, and nobody asks any questions. So all of these questions that you ask that's not on topic to what we're talking about, I'm more than happy to talk about, but either save them for a general Jimmy Rants where I have a Q&A, and or you can just email me, jimmy@llvlc.com. Alberto's next experiment is going to be eating live animals, says Sweet Churro. That would be strange. It's weird when people say they are allergic to red meat, says Alberto. That means they're allergic to themselves. I'm carnivore. Oops, that hurt. I just bit myself. There are no keto positive shows with all the people that have diabetes. Thank goodness for YouTube. Yeah, Terry, that is about to change. There is this, I can't say a whole lot about it, but there is a show idea that would be a ketogenic focused show. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'm trying to try keto carnivore with at least 75% starting today. Excellent. Keep adding the fat. It does help. It really does for some of us. all these celebrities advertising their so-called weight loss program and people listen to them. That is a big one, Ashton, that celebrities, and we do live in a celebrity culture. I don't understand that. I don't get enamored by celebrities. I really never have. They just do nothing for me. But people do listen to them and try to mimic them, that's for sure. But then you've got people like Halle Berry, who's doing keto. So indirectly, that's helping the cause of keto. Yeah. I'm a nurse. I recommend keto to all my friends and family. I don't care what I was taught in nursing school. Well, Rachel, you're a good nurse because you have continued to be educated and not living on just what you learned in nursing school. So kudos to you. All right, guys, so the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants is, what's the real reason why people still fear dietary fat? It's not the cardiovascular issues. That's been debunked. Get Cholesterol Clarity, my book, Cholesterol Clarity. It's not the calories issue, because nutrition isn't about calories. It's about the hormonal response in your body to what you're feeding yourself. And we know the bad hormonal response mainly comes from carbohydrates. So then what is it? It's all this cultural stuff that fat is bad. And so we've been told this for decades. So therefore it should be true. But let me be the first to tell you, if this is news to you, no, it's not. No, it's not. There's no rational reason why you should be fearing dietary fat. And I will give the one caveat. If you're still eating a very high carb, processed grains, processed sugars type of diet, do not mix that with dietary fat. That is a recipe for disaster. Does that mean the fat was bad? No. It means the hormonal impact from those crappy garbage foods is what made the fat worse for you. What makes it better for you is carbohydrate restriction. So drop your carbohydrate intake to just green leafy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables to start. Have those, and then eat real food-based fats and moderate down on the protein. You're not eating a big 20-ounce porterhouse steak. You're having a 5-ounce steak, 6-ounce steak, maybe a few eggs, and that's your protein for the day. And then you're eating real whole foods. Cook those vegetables in butter, coconut oil, lard, all of these healthy fats. And we need to stop irrationally fearing dietary fat. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, we start the show on Instagram Live. So if you're not following me on Instagram, go follow me there at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage in the content live, just like all these amazing people did here today. If you missed the live, you can watch the replay for up to 24 hours on Instagram. So go follow me there. But if you missed the replay, or you just don't do Instagram, not everybody does, I have a huge following over on YouTube. So go watch these past Jimmy Rants episodes on YouTube, and you will find the show if you type in Jimmy Rants as a keyword search. Finally, we have the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form on the Jimmy Rants podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts and just came to Stitcher just yesterday. So go listen, subscribe. All of this, you guys, is at JimmyRants.com. So until next time, we'll see you then.